All right, let's dig in. We're about to uncover the absolutely incredible story of, well, one of the world's most important foods, a true tuber that literally changed everything.
I mean, think about it. Mashed, fried, baked, boiled. It's just always there, right? A staple on our plates. It's so common we barely even think about it.
But what if I told you that this humble little tuber did more than just fill our stomachs? What if it actually steered the course of world history? Seriously, this isn't just about food. We're talking about a story of empires, of conquest, of devastating famine, and ultimately, of survival. To really get this, we have to go way back, like 8,000 years back. Picture this. You're high up in the Andes Mountains, right on the shores of Lake Titicaca. It's here that ancient people started to domesticate a wild plant that just grew everywhere. And right there, that was the birth of the potato.
So let's get to know our main character. What exactly is this plant? How did it start its journey to global domination from such a remote, high-altitude place?
Okay, so its scientific name is Solanum tuberosum. And you might be surprised to hear it's in the nightshade family, so it's a cousin to tomatoes and eggplants. But its real magic, its power, isn't in what you see above ground. Nope, it's all about what it stores underground in these starchy tubers. Yeah, the part we all know and love.
And if you break it down, it's pretty simple. It's mostly water and starch. But don't let that fool you. That high starch content, that's what makes it an incredible source of energy. I'm talking about the kind of raw energy that can literally fuel an empire.
But hold on, it's not just a big ball of carbs. A single, medium-sized potato packs an absolutely serious nutritional punch. We're talking nearly half your daily vitamin C, and get this, more potassium than a banana. It's a surprisingly complete food all on its own. And long before it ever left the Americas, the potato was already a major player, shaping history. For thousands of years, it was the backbone, the food security that allowed these incredible, complex civilizations like the Incas to rise up and thrive in what is, let's be honest, a really harsh environment.
And that tells you something really important. For the Andean people, this was never just a crop. They called it Mama Yatha, the mother of growth. Think about that. It was the very foundation of their society, a sacred provider of life.
But the potato's world, which had been centered in the Andes for millennia, was about to get a whole lot bigger. It was about to set off on a pretty perilous journey across the ocean. And believe me, things were not going to be easy.
So in 1532, the Spanish conquistadores arrive. They're there for one thing, gold. They're hunting for precious metals. They had absolutely no idea that the real treasure wasn't shiny at all. It was this humble tuber that they eventually brought back to Europe almost as an afterthought.
And how did Europe react? Well, they were not impressed at all. To them, this was some alien plant from a strange new world. People were deeply suspicious. They thought it looked ugly, it grew underground, which was weird, and hey, it's a nightshade, so it's probably poisonous. It was seen as food for pigs, maybe for the desperately poor, but certainly not for respectable people.
But you know what changes minds? Desperation. Over the next century and a half, as famine swept across Europe, that perception slowly started to shift. You had rulers like Frederick the Great of Prussia who literally had to force their starving subjects to plant potatoes. And against all odds, it went from being this suspicious outsider to a crop of survival. It finally became the food of the people.
So, the potato had finally conquered Europe. It was fueling massive population booms, even helping to power the Industrial Revolution. But, and this is a big but, this incredible success came at a terrible price.
See, the very thing that made the potato such a hit in Europe, the fact that you could basically clone it, just planting chunks of a few really productive parent varieties, well, that turned out to be its greatest weakness. The entire continent, pretty much, was planting just a handful of genetically identical potatoes, a monoculture.
And nowhere was this dependency more extreme than in Ireland. By the 1840s, a staggering, and I mean staggering, 80% of the population's calories came from this one crop, the potato. They had built their entire society on a genetic knife's edge. And then, it happened. In 1845, a microscopic mold, something called late blight, floated across the Atlantic. It couldn't hurt humans, but for potatoes, it was an absolute apocalypse. Because there was zero genetic diversity, no firewall. The blight just swept through the fields like wildfire. One year's crop, gone. The next, gone. 3 whole years of potato crops were just wiped out. The result was one of the worst famines in modern history. 1 million people died. Millions more were forced to emigrate. It was a catastrophe. So the famine was this horrific, brutal lesson in the dangers of relying on a single, uniform crop. But even after all that devastation, the potato story was far from over. It was actually about to rise again, but this time as a truly global food.
Just look at this. It's an explosion. In the second half of the 20th century, potato production in the developing world just skyrockets. In China and India alone, check this out, it grew more than 6 times over in less than 50 years. That is insane growth.
And of course, it found its ultimate modern form, the French fry, right? Perfected by fast food chains and these huge global companies like McCain. The potato became the cheap, convenient, and, let's face it, universally loved fuel for our new globalized world.
And that brings us right up to today, because the potato's journey is not over. Not by a long shot. And its future, well, just like its past, its future lies right back where it all began.
Because back in the Andes, the story is completely different. While the rest of the world was relying on just a handful of types, Andean farmers have been cultivating thousands, over 5,000 different native varieties. This incredible biodiversity, it's like a living library, a genetic treasure chest that holds the keys to creating new kinds of potatoes, ones that can resist disease and maybe even survive climate change.
So think about this for a second. The potato's first journey out of the Andes, it literally saved the old world from constant hunger. Now, today, as we face all these new massive challenges to our global food supply, the big question is, will the incredible diversity that's been waiting all this time in its ancestral home be the thing that saves all of us all over again?